When I was 23 years old, all anybody wanted to ask me was, what do you do for a living? And what was my response? My response was, I do awesome. I'm Steve Armato, and I started this podcast to interview awesome people who build awesome lives. So now, let's do awesome. On today's episode of Doing Awesome, I talk with somebody who over a 3-year span, I became pretty close with. And his name is Felipe Fontes. He is I call him a sports media superstar. He started a podcast with a couple guys that he works with that ended up blowing up to over 100 million views in what looks like less than a year and a half, which is unheard of in today's world. He's very knowledgeable. He's very motivating. He's trying to start his own thing. He's trying to start his own business, online business, where he helps as many people as possible create and grow their personal brands. And this episode is going to be one of those episodes where you get a lot of value and you see somebody who is very similar to your co-host or to your host. Stay tuned for this episode of Doing Awesome. My guy, Felipe Fontes. How are we doing, sir? Welcome to Doing Awesome.
Doing great, man. I mean, with that intro, the name of the podcast and everything, Doing Awesome, sounds pretty good. Like you got some good things to say about me, so I'm happy to be here.
I do. That's why you're on the show, man.
Yeah.
That's why you're on the show. It's because I have only good things to say about you. So,
well, here we go. I'm excited to hear it.
Some context here. We go back to the game day, which when I say we go back, that's not even that long ago because it's 2023 and that was 2021 maybe, end of 2020, 2021.
End of 2020, yeah.
Yeah, so you grew up in Texas. The only knock I have against you, I have nothing but good things to say about you, but the only knock I have against you is that you're a Cowboys fan, which that's fine. We stink. You own the Giants. So that's the only bad thing I have to say about you. Like somebody says, what do you think of Felipe? I'm like, he's great, but he's a Cowboys fan.
Look, dude, I'm used to it. I come up to New York and obviously made a lot of friends and everything, but that's usually the one knock I hear. But like you said, it's been in my favor recently. I think Dak has never lost to the Giants or something like that. So, what is that, 6 years or something?
I don't remember the last time the Giants beat you guys.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't know when that was. Even when the Giants were good and the Cowboys weren't, you'd still get 1 out of 2 every year. The only time we really would get you is you'd beat us twice in the regular season. If we see you in the playoffs, we'd beat you. That's the only time we'd get you.
Yeah. Well,
other
anybody
than that,
gets us in the playoffs. So
yeah, that's a problem. But that's not that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
That's fine. We're not here to talk about that. So you grew up in Texas and you made your way all the way over here. How did you make your way east?
Yeah, man. So really, I was in high school and I played football my whole life. Football was my life. And I got to that time when you start thinking about college around junior, senior year. I was really late. I never actually really cared about academics too much. I only cared about football. But I blew my knee out my junior year spring ball. So in Texas, football is so big. You play spring football, whereas up here, it's really only colleges that do that. But I tore it. And so I was going to miss my whole senior year. And I was like, damn, I really got to start thinking about life outside of football. And I didn't have the size to really be good in college anyway. So I had to think about that. And I was like, all right, how do I stay in sports and do that for work or for real life? How can I make, sports a reality even if I can't play in it? And sports media made sense. I would watch First Take all the time. And I just Stephen A. Smith. Everybody hates him, but he was my guy when I was in high school. I just loved him ever since I was in middle school. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do whatever he did. And I knew he was a journalism major. I'm like, all right, I'll probably, do journalism. And so I looked up some of the programs across the country, and Hofstra at the time, Hofstra University, was one of the best in the country. They had the best radio station in the country, according to the Princeton Review or something like that. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to go up to New York and do that. And so I looked at a couple other schools, but I just kind of put everything into Hofstra, and then I got accepted there. I went to college there, did the whole journalism program in New York. And then at that point, I had a couple I got a couple internships in the city as well. And I'm like, yeah, I might as well just, stay in New York City. This is where all the sports media is going on anyways, for the most part, at least like, the bigger happenings are up in New York City. So then I stayed in New York City, and that's really why I'm here. It's just like I went to New York for college, and then I just never left.
That happens a lot, though. People come to New York for college and they don't leave. I just grew up here and I just still won't leave. But I get it, man. There's a
I
lot.
there's a lot going on here. Like you come and I didn't. It's not like I came. A lot of people think like, oh, you came from Texas. You used to ride a horse to school. Like it wasn't like that. Like I was in like a super metropolitan area. It's very suburban or whatever, and a lot of people. And but still, you come to New York, and there's still 10 times more things going on. Like there's, just being in a city like this. And I live in Manhattan now. It's just it's a different world, but it's one that you feel the vibrance, you feel the energy, and you either love it or you hate it. I don't feel like many people are here and just kind of like, I kind of like it, because it could be too busy for many people. But I love it. I love the energy, and yeah, like that's why I'm here.
It's fast, man. It's a different speed. It's
Yeah,
like it's the NFL where somewhere else is like how do we say? Not. I'm not going to say the SEC because I'm going to say New York is like the NFL, and that's like the American Athletic Conference from somewhere else. Like
yeah,
totally different speed.
right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
some
Totally.
people might not understand that analogy, but let's put it this way: it's basically whether you're going to be listening to Taylor Swift or you're going to go to a. I'm bad with music, but I'm going to say Taylor Swift or like.
You got it, bro. I got trusted
Yeah,
you.
it's just not Taylor Swift, basically.
Hey,
Basically,
I wish
Paramore. There we go. Paramore. It's the difference between Taylor Swift and Paramore. It's just a
I like
different
it.
speed. So
I like it. I like the trend. I like the trending artist in this as well in this conversation. We had to throw
neat.
Taylor Swift in there somehow.
Had to throw Taylor Swift in there. She's all the rage right now. As a sports media guy, do you even care? What are you thinking about this?
Honestly, I think it's outplayed. I saw like the memes and like the screenshots of I think it was like ESPN's Instagram feed, and meanwhile the Dolphins are beating the Broncos, I think, right, like 70-10 or something like that.
Beat
Yeah,
down.
while that's happening, like out of 12 posts or out of like 20 posts, 18 of them are about Taylor Swift at the Chiefs game.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like the perfect example of what's actually going on right now. I actually don't care too much about it, but it's funny, so who cares?
I mean, what I need is her to be a distraction so that some of Kelsey's targets get moved over to Rashi Rice, and that'll help my fantasy
Fantasy
team. So
implications. Got
yeah,
it.
that's neither here nor there right now. But that's all I'm going to say about that. So you come here, you're fresh out of school, and when I meet you, you were I think you were employee number 1 or 2 with the game day.
Technically
What
eight. Technically
tech,
eight. I think.
technically 8, but there was a
Yeah.
bunch of people that were employees that
Right.
weren't really
Right.
employees.
Yeah.
You're an OG at the game day. How did you A link up with them to get that job, and B, what were you thinking at the beginning? Because we were probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah, man. So look, I graduated in 2020, and we know what happened in 2020. Like COVID just took over the world. It destroyed everything. And so that was May. I graduated like remotely, I guess. Like everything was remote. My classes were
Right.
remote. I got kicked out of school essentially because, they sent everyone home. So then I graduated in May, and then I was looking for a job for like a few months, and it was just, obviously a bad economy and all that stuff going on, a lot of layoffs, and COVID just and disrupted everything. And so I was applying to a bunch of jobs for months, and then around October, like late, yeah, I think it was like early October. So I'm coming up on the anniversary right now, and thinking like a week or like 9 or 10 days, it'll be my anniversary at the game day, 3 years. But around that time, I applied to another job that I saw. It was on LinkedIn, and I got an email at like 4 in the morning the next day. And I'm like, this is weird, like 4 in the morning. Then I realized they were based in UK, or at least the CEO and stuff. And they were like, hey, like, yeah, we'd be interested in like, would you be interested in interviewing? And he gave me the option for that day. So I interviewed that day, and they pretty much hired me like the next day. And so I was like, oh wow, yeah, they kind of need people. And
Yeah.
that lends me to like your second question, which is like, what were my thoughts, man? So coming in, I interviewed with two people, Dennis, right, who's
Yep.
still at the game day. Actually, his anniversary is today, which is
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell
Yeah.
you a Dennis story after. Keep going.
All right, sick. So Dennis, and then another guy, Doug, who probably is never going to listen to this, so I can kind of say this. Doug was a character. Ended up leaving after in a few months, and was my boss. And yeah, so it was kind of the original crew. I ended up meeting you. I ended up meeting Ryan, who was there as well, and like just like everybody that was putting in work at the time, which was like you were just doing a little bit of everything, and honestly, like I didn't have much. I didn't really have an idea of what was going on, like in terms of like what's the long term implications here. I knew we were trying to make something special happen with like media, a lot of production at the time, like COVID. Everybody was doing all this remote production, like recording on Zoom and doing all that. And I had done that on my own too. I had my own little podcast that I had kind of worked on a little bit before that during COVID in like the spring. And so for me, it was just really fun to jump into an environment where like I felt like I was going to be needed. Like I said, like there wasn't that many people there. It was just a few of us, right?
Yep.
And it was cool to get my hands dirty. I had prior experience at like big companies, CBS Sports, NBC Sports for like internships. I was at also NBC
Hmm.
Sports. Did I say that? Sirius XM. I don't know. I was at a few like big companies,
Yeah.
and I hated it because I was just doing all this like boring busy work, and it wasn't. I couldn't see the result of anything. Like I was just doing
Right.
stuff that really didn't matter, and I was super bored. So when I got to this job, and I was one of the few employees, really got to get my hands dirty. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like I didn't know the long term implications. I didn't know anything like that, but I just knew that I was getting paid to actually do work and have that be seen. Like whatever I was working on was going to get produced and it was going to go out on YouTube or Instagram or whatever it would be. And so that was really cool. So while I didn't know the long term implications, and my dad actually didn't want me taking this job, I had another offer at the same time to go work at uh Vox, one of their SB Nation.
Yeah.
So I had another one for SB Nation, and it was to be a staff writer. And I was like, I don't want to be a writer. So my dad actually got on to me for not taking like the safer job at the bigger company. My mom was all for it. She's more like me, kind of like a risk taker. And I don't know. I think it worked out.
Yeah. No, it did work out, and there's nothing safe about the SB Nation job. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing safe
Yeah.
about that. But no, yeah. So it's funny because we the first day I got a call on a Thursday from Ryan, and he goes, "Hey man, we need I'm linked up with this guy Steve." He goes, "I'm linked up with this guy Steve." He goes, "They just need a couple videos this weekend. They're a brand new company. They're just launched." He goes, "They just need a couple videos this weekend with I think it was like Merrill Hodge."
Merrill Hodge. Yeah. I remember
And
that.
they're like, "We need he goes, he tells me it's going to be like 5 videos. And we did 21 videos in 2 days. So I immediately I was like, "Ryan, I see what you did there." But then he calls me on Monday. He calls me that Monday. He goes, "Hey man, they love it. They love what you did. You want to keep working with them?" I said, "Yeah, let's go." He goes, "All right, I'm here. Let's go." We're there for a week, and then boom, Dennis immediately comes in. Here comes Dennis. Dennis gets on a call with me and Ryan, and he just looks at us and he goes, "Listen," he goes, "we don't have much yet." He goes, we small." He goes, he goes, we're gonna sit down, figure out who we know talent wise, figure out what we can make, and we got to start just pumping content. We're like, let's do it. So we're pumping content. Then you came along, and then slowly it looked like, oh, they are hiring people, and this thing is moving, and it moved. I felt like it moved so quick. I felt
Yeah.
like it grew so fast, and everything kept changing, and then it just turned into what it is now, which is a very big sports media property, especially in the social space, which is what I want to get into. Caps Off comes about.
Right.
Nothing had really hit. Like a couple of things may have hit prior to Caps Off at a couple of
Ish.
different things ish, but
Yeah.
Caps Off comes along. It's you, it's Jack, it's Adam, Matan. I'm sure I'm missing a few people there, but that comes along. How did that come about? And what was the game plan here? Because that has grown. I mean, what do you have? 100 million TikTok views. You got over a million
Yeah, that
followers.
was crazy.
That has grown so quick. How did it come about, and how did that move so quickly to what you guys have built?
Yeah, so you're right. Like the growth was insane. It was so quick. At the same time, like I remember just working so much that the time it went by really slow. I felt like from October to March was like just this super, super slow grind. And but as it started to grow, we started bringing more people on, and especially heading into that next fall. So like within a year, we Adam had come on. He became the new NFL manager. We had brought a bunch of different guys on social, different people on social, and so at that time, like we had Jack who was doing baseball. I was doing NFL, but at that time, after a year, I got bumped up to senior social media manager. So Adam was on NFL, and then we had Matan who was doing a lot of like the video editing and stuff. And every day, and that at that same time is when we started coming into the office. So I think it's when a lot of jobs started welcoming people back in,
Right.
kind of over that whole COVID thing where everybody's working remotely. And they're like, hey, we're going to have a chance to make content in the studio in person, which is a lot better, as we know. And so we were doing a bunch of one-off things, trying to do a bunch of different video series. As you kind of mentioned, a bunch of things thrown at the wall. Some kind of worked, others not really. And throughout this whole period where we're trying a bunch of stuff, every day we're coming into the office and we're just arguing about sports. We're just talking about the NFL, football. It just turned out that football was the thing we all liked. It was like the one thing we all had in common. So we would just come into the office and we would argue every day about it. We would talk about all these different things and have stupid arguments. And we had a group chat, and you know how group chats are with your friends where you're talking about the NFL, and like there's always one guy that's saying all these like crazy provocative stuff, and then there's another guy who like doesn't watch any tape, doesn't watch any, I say tape, but like doesn't watch any of the games, but has these like wild opinions, and another guy who's like really like analytical and has these stats, and there's a guy that just yells all the time. And that's kind of what it ended up being in the office. We kind of like felt that way. I tended to have some of the hotter takes, I would say, but also I would come from a standpoint of understanding football a little bit more than them, just because I played the game in a way, like a lot more really than they had. And so, yeah, so we're having these arguments every day. And at the time we had this, I think he was like the VP of content development or something like that, or SVP of content development, something like that. And he was with us for 6 months during this period of growth. He was one of the guys that came on, one of the higher guys, and he ended up leaving to do his own thing. But the day that he was leaving, he came to us. I don't know if you ran into Spencer. I was talking about Spencer, but maybe you know, maybe you don't.
I might have ran into him for like a quick second.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you probably seen him. Well, he sat us down that last day that he was there. He was kind of saying goodbye to everybody, and he was like, "Hey, like, individually, he sat us down." And when he came to me, he was like, what do you want to do? Like, what's your long-term goals? And I'm like, oh, like, I'm just trying to grow, whatever. And he's like, well, here's the thing is you guys, you, Adam, Jack, you guys argue like every day about football and all this like NFL stuff. And the thing is like, if you put a camera on this and a mic on you guys, it would be super entertaining because you guys are funny. You make good points. You kind of go back and forth, and like, it's just super entertaining as somebody on the outside just watching you guys. And he pretty much was like, you guys should start a podcast or just a show where you guys are just talking, do it for the game day. And rather than like ask them to do it. And then, what's that saying? Like, don't ask for permission.
Ask for forgiveness later.
Forgiveness after. Hey, that's pretty much what he said. And so we're like, okay, cool. Like, that's kind of cool. And Matan at the time was like, yeah, I would love to produce something like this. Like, we're all just trying to make something that's good with us. Cause at the time we're using a lot of outside talent and it wasn't really working. And so we're like, yeah, let's do this thing. So we bring it to the guys at the time, like the higher ups per se, like with the Dennis's. And at the time we had another like VP or SVP of content, which was Nate. And they were like, you know what? Let's try this thing out. Like, you guys think it's gonna work? Let's try it out. And so, we try it out, kind of bare bones. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. The camera angles are all off or whatever. Like, it looks terrible, but we try. We put one video out on TikTok. We don't even have a name of the show yet. We don't have anything. We put it out on one of the owned verticals that we had on TikTok, which was the Game Day HQ, which was just like office videos at the time, and it got like 60,000 views. And we're like, okay, that's proof of concept potentially. Like, our previous videos that we were putting up had like no views at all.
Right.
It was like our office stuff. So we're like, that's kind of cool. And so that was kind of like what we needed as far as like to show the higher ups that, all right, like, let's maybe organize some thoughts around this and try to make it happen. And that happened pretty quickly. We put a logo together like really quick. We ended up with the name Caps Off, which is just has like multiple meanings. Obviously, like the lingo with Gen Z, everybody's talking about no cap. Like, I'm not lying. But then also, and group chats, like, we were thinking, like, people go all caps in chat, so it's like relax, and there was multiple meanings, and we're like, okay, this kind of works. The original name that Adam had was Ass Talk, because he's like, we're all gonna talk out our ass, and that got shut down really quick.
Quick. That's not. Yeah. I can see that. Just them like, no, next try.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was Caps Off. We got the logos done real quick. We have the in-house design team that was able to whip stuff up, and we put the couches in the studio, and we just started recording, and that blew up really quick. But that was kind of like the origin of it, is just kind of like how it went down.
That's crazy. It's crazy too because what's crazy about it is I had worked with all of you before, right? And I had worked with all of you in different ways. So me and Jack had a baseball podcast. So I already knew
Daily Dingers, Daily Dingers, bro.
Jack had some wild takes on that thing.
Yep.
And then I had filmed with Tish, shout out Tish and Adam at the Sweet 16.
That's
right.
It
was St. Peter's and it was the St. Peter's run when they beat Purdue. So I'd filmed with him. So I had experience with him. I was like, that guy's really good on camera. Then I just worked with you in general. And I worked with Matan, but I didn't really know. Like, I just knew he had good takes. And I thought that he was just a good guy, knew what he was doing, like always was like into the production, into the editing. And so when I saw it all together, I was like, all right. I was like, this works. I was like, this is four completely different personalities.
Yeah.
This is like completely, they're all bringing something else to the table, and it works. It's great. Like, I love the clips. The clips you guys put together are awesome. You guys go viral all the time.
Yes.
It's great. Now, I can't say that I agree with some takes that you have but that's the point. That's why it does well. You don't want anything but people don't understand that you don't want people to agree with everything, because then nobody's watching, nobody really cares.
Correct. Yeah.
You put out a lot of, you're big on Twitter. Like, you're a big Twitter guy now. I see. When you post on Twitter and it's similar to your content, are you attempting to put up a hot take or an opinion that might be against the grain of what a majority of people have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the content in general, especially on these like short form platforms, and short form platforms, like short form video platforms would be TikTok and Instagram, but Twitter also is that, like, tweets is short form content. And so, yeah, like, if I'm writing up a tweet, that first line, I need it to be kind of hooky, and it might be controversial in some sense, but in my opinion, all content and most content that does well on these short form platforms, they have a hook. They got to grab attention in some way. And sometimes it might rub people the wrong way. But if you actually go in and listen to the full thing, or read the full thing if you're on Twitter or whatever it is, then you're actually going to get the perspective of what's going on. So people who understand content understand that, and they're going to go out and fully read something before they, go out and make a huge judgment on a tweet or a person who made a tweet or a person who said this on a TikTok video. because they're gonna wait to like see the full thing. And so yeah, I definitely do, use that as a strategy to bring people in and just get their attention.
Yeah, I mean, you do a really good job of it, and you've grown. I feel like you've grown quickly on Twitter, and on top of that, you are a coach. You coach people, podcasts.
Yep.
Try to build. You're trying to build your own thing. What type? What are you trying to do, and what type of people are you trying to help?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I did start that. I started that around January. Obviously, like with all the success we had with Caps Off, blowing it up to. I mean, now like you just said, we just got 100 million view count. I think,
I saw
which is
that the other
insane.
day. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and 200,000 followers across all our platforms, and so it was really quick growth. And I was thinking, I'm like, wow, I could really help out other people who are trying to do the same thing. I have valuable information to give. And so that's an endeavor, a pursuit that I really wanted to go after, which was just like helping other people trying to do the same thing. And so I've been through multiple stages of that. And it started off with people where I thought, like, oh, I put myself a few years back when I had just graduated college and I just kind of want to do a podcast because I'm like, I don't want to work for a big company. Let me just like do podcasting and stuff like that, and helping those people out. And I think that's most of my audience on TikTok. But as you know, and when you're creating content, you're creating something on the side like that, like it's got to make what's the saying, like if it don't make dollars it don't make sense,
Yeah,
or something like
yeah,
that. And I just realized that like that audience, it was great going after that target audience to grow my personal brand in terms of like coaching and helping out on that end, but it wasn't the most beneficial monetarily. And so since then, I've kind of shifted overall to more entrepreneurs, founders, and people in that kind of area that are starting a brand or growing a podcast and want to really connect with the growing audience, connect their podcast, their videos, even their social brands in general with the growing audience. And that's kind of where I've shifted over the past few weeks or so.
yeah. And that's what's awesome about that is that a lot of people who are, I don't, maybe they're an entrepreneur already, or maybe they're trying to become an entrepreneur. I don't think they fully understand how important an audience is
Yeah.
and how to grow it. And
Yeah.
a lot of times you need that nudge from somebody.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of people, like, look, there's a lot of businesses today, and the world is shifting so quickly when it comes to, you talk about AI and just like everything's digital and all this type of stuff. And the most valuable thing you can have today, where in the past you could have a great product in 1990 and it's going to sell itself. Probably you can find ways you can just pay for advertising here and there. Well, today everything's online, like social, like your audience. What do you have? What distribution do you have? Where before, like everybody, it was unfair, right? Because whoever could pay for distribution had distribution, but if you didn't, then you couldn't. And today you can really build an organic audience for free. Just make great content. And it goes kind of back to what we were talking before. How are you capturing your audience with hooks and stuff like that? And so when you can grow that audience, then you have a follower base that you can do what you want with, right? Like that, yeah, they're watching your videos and stuff like that. But the more people you have, brands are going to want to attach themselves to that. So now you're talking about brand sponsorships. You can also take the affiliate route with that. And we know the game day we were talking about, obviously with sports media and all that. DraftKings comes by and they say, hey, we're going to pay you $150 for every customer you bring our way. So now you're connecting people through them. You're making money that way. There's just an endless opportunity. And I think the biggest thing is if you have your own product, if you have distribution, you have a follower base that follows and they see who you are and they like you and they're following you because they like you, then you don't even have to sell your product necessarily because you sold yourself. Like they bought you. Now, whatever you have that you want to throw their way, that is going to help them. Hopefully, they're going to be more willing to buy than like a cold consumer who you're like, hey, like, this is what I have. Like, a used car salesman. And so I think there's so many benefits to having an audience, to just really having that distribution. And as you said, like a lot of business owners have a product but don't know how to grow that audience, don't know how to develop that distribution, and that's what I'm really trying to help out with.
Right. And you said it, and this is so true about business in general. People do business with people. They're not buying, yeah, maybe they're buying a product, maybe they're buying a service. They're buying you at the end of the day. Nobody understands that. Well, people do understand that, and the people that understand that do well. The people that don't understand it have no idea, and they're
Yeah.
never going to have an idea, and they're never going to get it. It's people do business with people, and that's the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway for anybody. You don't want to you want to do business with certain types of people, and then there are people that immediately you meet and you say, I don't want to do business with this person. I just don't want to be associated with them, and that's it. So you can have a great product, great service. If you're not a person that somebody wants to do business with, they will not do it with you. End of the
Right.
day.
And I mean, that's the great thing about personal branding and just building that the distribution on social, as we kind of talked about, because you're creating content and you're not actively pitching. Like you're you're building a rapport, a relationship with whoever comes and follows you, and they choose to follow you. So they're choosing to be engaged with what you're putting out. And so, kind of like, I was taught, like, I worked at LA Fitness when I was in college, and like one of those summer jobs or whatever. And I worked in, like, I would sell personal training. And that was even true then. Like, this wasn't even online, but it was true then. My boss told me, people buy you, then they buy your product. So you got to be able to, like, it's not about necessarily the product. The product can sell. Like, there's been, we've sold training here and there or whatever, but you got to be able to sell yourself. And a huge part of that is presentation and content and social media in general. That's what you're doing. You're putting out content all the time. You're presenting yourself in many different ways and allowing consumers, and who you hope will be your buyers or whatever it may be, to become more familiar with you. And so when you do actually when there's a sale to be made, then it's fluid. Like, you're not even coming to them first time. They already know who you are. They're familiar with you, and they trust you already.
Absolutely. Trust is a big thing. You got to get people to know you. You got to get people to like you. You got to get people to trust you. And then there's selling's easy. That's it. That's the only things that anybody needs to know. And
That's right.
that's it. So I want to ask this question to you. You kind of did this. I mean, you did it right out of school, and now you're very successful in doing it. But what advice would you give a young person who might be coming out of school? Maybe they're out of school a year or two, and they want to be in sports media. What advice would you give them? How do they get into the sports media field? And I'm not talking like, hey, go work at ESPN as an intern. I'm talking like they want to do what you're doing. So
Yeah.
what advice do you have for those people?
I'm glad you specified, because I was about to answer. First thing is, don't go work at ESPN. Don't go try to work for a big company. I mean, first of all, you're going to waste a lot of time trying to get in there. Well, at a place like ESPN, it's super competitive, but even at a place that's less competitive, let's say, like, like I mentioned, I interned at NBC Sports or CBS Sports. You get to a place like that and they completely waste your time. Like, I mean, you're going to be doing a bunch of busy work and stuff like that, and it won't be years before you actually do something that you might be able to have fun in and actually do something rewarding.
Right.
But since you crossed that out, which is great, then, like, how does someone get into creating content and being able to work in the sports media field, actually getting their hands dirty and actually creating something that's valuable? I am a big proponent of this, and I tell everybody this when people come and ask me, what should I do? I always say, like, look, first off, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but I favor the ones that are at smaller companies or companies that are starting to grow and develop. Because if you're able to get into a position like that at a smaller company that's really developing, they're going to utilize you because they have to. And so they're spending money on you as a resource to be able to get stuff done. And they're going to want to make the most out of you, as compared to what we kind of talked about before, where you're just like a little cog in a huge machine and you're not going to do anything that's really worthwhile. And so at a small company, you're able to get all this experience. Not only is it more fun because you're actually doing stuff and you're seeing the results and what you're creating, but you also develop your skills a lot, and so you become a lot better. And I became like a better video editor because I had to do stuff and I wasn't even there to video edit a lot of times. Like I remember I was working in Adobe After Effects. Like I barely knew about that, but I was creating stuff that, I had to, because it was how we were promoting the show and whatever. And so you develop these skills that you would never develop if you weren't put in that position. So you develop your
Right.
skill set, you have a lot more fun. And what happens is when you develop your skill set and you have fun doing it, time flies because you're enjoying it. But also, it puts you in a position to kind of choose where you want to go. And so for me, like I've been at the game day for 3 years. So it's not like I even shifted into another job or whatever it may be. But what happened with me was I saw a lot of quick growth. So in about like 6 months, I got my first promotion. I got a decent like pay bump. But then around like a year and a half after I started. So I guess like pretty much a year after that, I got like a 33% raise because I was like, hey, I'm doing all this stuff. I got all this experience. I'm doing so much of this stuff and I'm not really being compensated for it. Like I went on LinkedIn. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. Here are, the average salaries compared to other people doing the same thing. And I got just like, I doubled my salary from when I started to like a year and a half later. So that's
Right.
like kind of unheard of many times. And that I was able to do because of all the experience I got. And so if I didn't go that route, I would be able to leverage all the skill set that I've developed in because I was at the small company and go somewhere else and get a big pay raise there and get a higher title there. And so I had the leverage at that point. And so I guess like what kind of sums it up is you go to a smaller company, you build your skill set while actually enjoying what you're doing, and then you create leverage because you have so many skills that you can kind of do what you want with it. And so that's my number one thing. Um, you know, another benefit that you could get, like I've been able to do, is we started a podcast. If I was at a bigger company, I couldn't dream of being on camera or doing anything like that. Because we're at a smaller company, I was able to do that. The podcast grew. My personal brand grew through it. That your personal brand is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. And it goes on and on. So I would definitely, like, that's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, and I'm very happy that you use the term skill set because I feel like a lot of people don't realize you need skills to get pay bumps, to get better jobs because a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm just doing this for X amount of time. I deserve a raise." Or I went to this school and I have this degree. I deserve a job. Do you have skills? What
Right.
skills do you have? What can you do to help a company? That is the most important thing. So I love that you harped on building your skill set because once you build a skill set, nobody can take your skills away from you. You could
Nope.
take that anywhere else that you want to go. And I do feel like a lot of people, I sound like an old man saying this, but a lot of younger people don't realize that. They don't
Nah.
realize that you have to build a skill set first. Nobody starts at the top of anything. And if you're willing, you got to be willing to suck for a little bit. Everybody sucks at something at at first, and you have to be willing to suck and then get better and grow. And like you said, build the skill set. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that because I tell people all the time when they ask a question about something like that, it's like build skills because if you don't have any, if you have skills, if you don't have any skills that are transferable from job to job, nobody's gonna hire you.
Yeah, that's the thing. It really comes down to skill, man. And I think you can still develop those skills on the side. Let's say you are working at a bigger company where you don't get those opportunities. You have, I mean, it's 2023, and you have every software, you have computers, like you can do whatever you want to create on the side and still develop those skills. And a good example is like I work with, I mean, we talked about Matan, but Matan was a music major in college, never did anything in media in terms of like sports media or journalism or anything like that that would usually would translate more to what we're doing today. But he got his first internship at Whistle, and he learned how to video edit and do literally everything that's needed on that he's doing today. He learned it on the job. So all these skills, like, you can learn you can teach yourself, you can do it on your own. And yeah, like that's what's valuable. That's what's going to get you a job if you want. That's what's going to allow you to succeed if you're going to do stuff on your own. It's not a college degree. None of that matters. Like, as far as I know, like I really don't think that and I don't know what the timeline is. I could say 10 years, it might be longer, but at some point, college degrees just aren't going to matter that much, because we have a kid that's interning for us. He's a freshman now, but he's been there 3 years at the game day. And we got him in high school. The reason we knew about him is because he had an Instagram page that popped off. Like, again, do something on the side and you'll get rewarded for it. And he's better at his job than like 28-year people who've been out of college for like 6 years. Like, he just does what he does. He understands social media. He understands content better than these people who went to college. So it's not about a degree. It's not about, a title on a piece of paper, like none of that stuff. Like, do you have skills? If you have skills, you can do anything you want with it.
Absolutely. And the only college degrees that are going to matter are lawyers, doctors, things like that. Anything else you can learn on the job. Go shadow somebody. Don't go into debt to go get your hands on a degree that nobody's going to ask you what your GPA was when you got out. So
I'm glad you specified, because I definitely don't want to go to a doctor that doesn't have a degree. So I'm really
they need degrees. They they need degrees. You want to go to the doctor that has the degree and was taught. But it does anything else that doesn't matter. Lawyers too, but the other stuff really does not matter.
Right. Especially content creation. It's just
content creation. You could do it in your bedroom starting when you're 8 if you want to, and you could be a pro by the time you're 18, and you could become Mr. Beast and just make $1 billion on YouTube. You could do that. That could be you. If you are, I don't know how much of our audience is 8 years old, but if you are 8 years old listening, you could be Mr. Beast if you start now. Just give it 10 years, man. That's
motivation right there.
That's it. That's all. That's all it is. That's all it is. I'm definitely cutting that up for a clip. There's just no way I'm not. So,
I love it.
So do you have a mentor or mentors that you look to for advice, or a board of? I like this term. I see a lot of board of advisors. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah. So ever since I started really developing my personal brand and seeing like, how can I make a business out of this, and like I said before, like leverage the skills that I have and turn it into an online business where I can help other people that want to do the same thing that I did. And so in that process, I found a couple mentors. I actually have 2. I start off paying for mentorship, and then it's become a relationship where it's just like a lot of conversation. And it's funny because they're both based in Europe. Well, they're both English. One of them actually lives in Sri Lanka, but
it's hot there, man.
Yeah, I know. He's like always shirtless when we on our calls. He's just like shirtless as fuck, and I'm like,
I got stuck on a layover there, dude. It's hot, but sorry, keep going.
But I really just I go to them. It's a lot about growth when it comes to personal branding, and then turning right now specifically with one of them's name's Tom, and it's specifically turning personal branding into dollars pretty much, and like how creating the offer that is going to be successful and everything that comes with that, really like the strategy to monetize your skill set and take that to like have control of that, right? Because I think one thing he says that's like very cool is that essentially everybody's an entrepreneur. You're just selling your skill set to one person when you're an employee, whereas you could kind of package that and sell it to multiple, and now you have a lot, like really it's just a lot of clients. So it's a different way to look at it. I don't think everybody's an entrepreneur. Not everybody has that mindset, but it's just like obviously a concept there. But I've been working with them, and then I would say, man, I've come to you in the past for advice. So I consider you a mentor, whether you know that or not. Like I get a lot of info and a lot of inspiration from you, especially because I think you've done a good job of like documenting what you're doing. And I think that's awesome. That's what I want to do. And if that's inspired me, and I want to be able to inspire other people in the same way. So I would consider you one. I've actually, I went to Canton, Ohio for this fantasy football expo that was for the game day. And there I met a couple guys. And one of the guys I met, his name's Alex Caruso. I'm not sure if you're
I know
familiar
who he
with
is.
him.
I'm
Big fantasy
with him.
guy. Yeah. And so I met him there. We had some conversation. And every month now we schedule a call like on a monthly basis where we just kind of check in on each other, see what's going on, what are we doing. And I think like he's young, man. He's 22. You would think he's older with how successful he is. He just had 100,000 followers on Twitter. He's big on TikTok. He's big everywhere. But he just has so much knowledge. So I just believe in learning from others who have done it before or who are just better than you at something. And everybody I go to, they can provide me with something that either I don't have, whether it's like knowledge or experience, or they can just give me words of wisdom and guidance towards something. So it's just real quick. It's funny because I met Alex at that convention, and he stayed at my place, stayed on my couch like 2 nights ago, because he was coming to New York to meet with a bunch of just make content and meet with some business partners that he was like he does the whole affiliate thing with sports betting companies and stuff like that. So he was meeting with like Mojo and doing a couple of those. And so he stayed on my couch. But like that night, I'm an early bird. Usually I wake up at 5:30 to start working on stuff. That night we stayed up till like 2 a.m. just talking about content and just talking about like development, like the business side of things and newsletters and what it means to have a dedicated follower base. And those conversations, and my girlfriend was there too, and she was into it, but we just stayed till 2 a.m. just talking about that stuff. So I think even if you don't, to me, he's a mentor, even though he's younger than me and he knows more. I guess he's younger than me, but he knows more about things than me in some areas, and I know more in some other areas, and so we're able to help each other. So I definitely have some mentors, whether they're like paid, where I paid to have their help, or just a network basis where we just talk and kind of help each other out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that's why, I mean, I appreciate you saying that too. And I like to help people because I want people to see that it's possible to do your own thing. Like maybe I'm not fully, I've had some success. I'm not going to say I'm super successful yet because I'm not, but I've had some success, and there's things that, you learn being in it. And I try as much as I can to pass it down to people, that anybody that wants to listen. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear. I don't push it on people because, you don't know. But if somebody comes to me, I'm open to saying like, hey, this is, what do you need help with? Because I feel like you give it out, you give it back, you get it back at some point as well.
That's it.
I had somebody help me when he still helps me. He's very successful. He wouldn't say that he's a mentor, but he definitely is a mentor. This guy, Sean, he was one of my first clients. He runs like all he does is buy production companies really, and he runs them, and he knows how to make content, and he knows how to run businesses. But if I call him with anything, he's just ready to go. And sometimes he's just like, hey, if you want some unsolicited advice here, or if I'm dealing with something with a client sometimes that I don't know what to do, I go, Sean, what do you have 5 minutes? And he helps. He's a great guy. If you're listening, Sean, I don't know if you are, but you're one of my guys. But so you had mentioned something. You mentioned that you're an early riser, 5:30 guy.
Yeah.
I'm a 5:30 guy too, for the most part.
That's why we're boys.
That's why we're boys. That's it. We're doing work when everybody's still sleeping.
That's right.
So do you have, so now do you have a morning routine, and what do you think about morning routines also?
Man, that's a heavy question, because that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. They're like, yo, fuck a morning routine. Am I allowed to cuss? I don't know if you're gonna cut that out.
Yeah, you could curse. You could cut. You're good. Right. Fair game on here, baby.
All right, cool. Because like on Caps Off, we're like 7 out of 10 words are probably cuss words. But
oh yeah, I've worked with Jack before. I know.
Oh my God, yeah. And Adam might be worse. But okay, so morning routine, it's mixed feelings. I know a lot of people are mocking like the kind of morning routine nowadays, where it's like, I saw a tweet today and it's like, oh, like I'm going to be super successful today because I woke up at 4:00 and I took 2 cold showers and I worked out and I did this and I wrote all my like objectives, all that kind of stuff. And they were just kind of mocking it. And I agree that like morning routine isn't necessarily going to it's going to make you like super successful. Like it's sets the foundation, I think. But that foundation I actually do believe in as as like kind of a momentum builder for you to actually accomplish the things you want to accomplish. And so for me, I do have a morning routine, even though I'm not a stickler about it. You never know. Like sometimes I think it's important to understand sacrifices at times and like what's worth sacrificing, what's not. Um, if I'm not gonna go on like I'm not gonna have a 5 hour night of sleep and expect to be productive the next day or a 4 hour, especially if it's like
Right.
multiple days in a row. And so I'm gonna allow myself to sleep in later, and obviously that throws off the morning routine. And so I'm not a super stickler about it. Like when I had Alex here the other night, I'm like, dude, I'm this experience, these 4 hours where we're staying up to 2 in the morning just talking is way more valuable than my morning routine. So I don't care. So that's why I have mixed feelings about it. But for the most part, I would say over 80% of the time, maybe roughly, I do have a morning routine where I wake up, I handle my brushing teeth duties or whatever, everything like that, and then I come to the first thing I do is I really just come to the computer where I'm at now, and I start working. And the reason I start doing I'm doing that now is because I used to go to the gym, and I would go to the gym and work out and then take a cold shower and then work a little bit. What I found is that didn't give me that much time to work on my stuff that I wanted to. And
Yep.
so I'm like, look, here's what I can do. Like, forget the gym. I can fit in the gym after work. Like, if I'm tired, like I'm pretty good about fitness, or somebody else, like maybe tailor your morning routine to what works for you. But I'm pretty good at the gym. I can go later. What I want to do now is guarantee 4-ish hours, 3.5 hours to getting stuff that I want to get done for me on the personal business that I'm working on, everything we kind of talked about with coaching, setting up everything I want there, creating content for myself, for my personal brand. I want to guarantee those hours of deep work, deep focus work in the morning. So now I wake up, brush my teeth, I come straight to the computer and I start creating. I start working on whatever I need to work on. I have my list of objectives that I lay out the night before. So you could say my morning routine really starts the night before. And then I knock those things out. I finish that. I take a cold shower. That's one thing I do every morning. I know everybody makes fun of it. I actually think it really helps me. I love cold showers. And I take that, and then I'm ready for work. I'll go get a coffee. And I think one thing that I've added recently, so whoever is listening to this, maybe it helps them as well. I used to first thing in the morning get a coffee. I don't do that anymore. I kind of read about it, and it was like, oh, maybe wait an hour and a half. Dude, I actually saw a drastic change. Like, no bullshit. The cold showers is like subjective, I think, so whatever. But the coffee, like waiting an hour and a half, that really made a huge difference for me in terms of like when I crashed. I saw so much more energy throughout the day by just waking up and not having coffee in that first like hour and a half. I would just drink water and then I would get a coffee, and that would set me up for the rest of the day. So that's kind of my morning routine: wake up, brush my teeth, come work for a few hours, cold shower, get a coffee, and then I'm out for my 9 to 5.
I mean, that's why we're friends in a lot of ways. Not the cold shower thing. I'm just not there. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm, I'm not. I'm a wimp right now. I really, I feel like I would be more inclined to jump in like in an ice bath for 2 minutes, but my wife totally disagrees with me, which she's probably right. But I used to wake up and try and figure out things. Actually, when I was at my 9 to 5, my original 9 to 5, I'd wake up, work on my own stuff, then go to work. Now I wake up, I immediately start working. If
Yeah.
like so, even I'm reading. Here we go. It's right next to me. So I'm reading Hormozy $100 million offers right here.
Brother,
I don't know if you can see that.
brother.
Boom. All right. So I'm reading this again. Second time
That's
I'm reading
crazy.
it. Second time I'm reading it because I am putting my offer together. So
Love it.
that's my work right now. That's my current work in the morning is go through that and put my offer together because I'm working on a new offer for a different part of my business. So I'm doing that immediately in the morning. But I usually wake up and I'll do stuff that right now I really want to do that because that is, to me, that's a pressing need to put a new offer together. But I'll
Mhm.
wake up and I'll do stuff that I don't want to do when people have access to me in terms of calling me, being able to call me, or like, yeah, anybody could call me at 5 in the morning, but nobody calls me at 5 in the morning.
Nah.
Nobody, I want to have 5 to 7. So those 2 hours that I have, they're just mine. They're
Yeah.
my 2 hours, and those are uninterrupted. So if I'm not working on an offer, I'm doing work that I don't want to get mad when somebody interrupts me doing it throughout the day. You get a lot done in 2 hours when
Oh yeah.
nobody's around. Nobody's
Oh yeah.
around.
100%. And I think it also comes down to just knowing what you're gonna do. I think like a lot of people don't. 2 hours isn't the same for everybody, right?
Right.
Like 2 hours of scrolling on your phone and like not knowing what you're there to do, whatever, that goes by in a heartbeat, and you get nothing done. Like you might, like if you're creating content, you might get a tweet, get a tweet in or whatever.
Right.
But if you have a plan, you know what you're gonna do in those 2 hours. And for me, because I get distracted, like I'm prone to this. My phone's here. I'll grab my phone, especially if I'm a little tired in the morning, whatever. Then I'll scroll without even knowing. So I just throw my phone like back at the couch, which is like behind me,
Yeah.
and then I start working. And I know those 2 hours are super productive for me, and it makes a world of difference. People think like you have to, like, I think it's a misconception that you have to just like overcome your desire to look at your phone. Like, why make it hard on yourself when you could just not have your phone in the first place? Like, I think just setting up the environment that makes it super easy for you to just be successful is just way easier. It's like work smarter, not harder. Like my phone's in front of me, I'm gonna look at it. I just
Right.
don't put it in front of me.
Right. And then even if it's face down, you still get random notifications. I've shut
Yeah.
notifications off on certain things, but still you get just
But you
random
hear the
things. And
vibrate,
even
you hear the little like bump, and you're like,
yeah,
you know?
and even the night and now especially it's football season and I still do fantasy football like a jackass, but I still do it. And I wake up on Monday and I want to see what happens. I'm not staying up to watch I'm not staying up. I
Yeah,
don't
I
stay
get it.
up to watch the games. I go, you got me for a quarter, maybe a half. So even tonight, I'm probably not watching the whole game, but if you want to wake up and you want to see the score, you want to see how your fantasy guys did, you can't do it because the score is not going to change between 5 and 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's just not.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No,
but
exactly. I'm in the same boat. Like I'll check in what happened in the morning. A lot of times, a lot of these past few Sunday nights, a lot of times I watch the first quarter, if that, and I'll check in on it later. So
I know we're going a little over on time here, but what does an awesome life look like to you?
that's a great question. I'm assuming this is a consistent question for
Mm-hmm,
you guys.
mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I talk about this a lot. Like when people when they ask like, what do you want to do and all this kind of stuff. And the main thing for me is I just want to feel fulfilled. And so that's why I'm doing so much on the side, is because at the last thing I want is to be bored. Like I hate that. And I feel like I'm not fulfilling my purpose, or what even is my purpose. And I think I spent months, um, from like last year, even like the early months of 2023, where I didn't know necessarily what my purpose was. And that's where I was trying to figure that out. And I was like, oh, I think I actually really do like helping people, and I can use my skill set to help other people make, make a better life for themselves with content or whatever it may be. And so I say that to say that like, I want to feel fulfilled and purposeful. And when I found what that is, and I've been iterating it and I've been creating it, like I said, I've been working with mentors to get there. And so I know what that is now. And it is helping other people accomplish goals. And at this time, because where my skill set is, those goals are building a brand and connecting that with an engaged audience. And so when you take that, I want to be able to do a lot with that and scale that, and to the point where it's like I'm really in control of my time, because I can flip it on and off with the switch. Okay, like I have a certain amount of clients that is giving me the financial freedom, the time freedom, freedom in general to be able to move how I want to move. When I want to take on more, I can take on more. And so the freedom I kind of talked about, really autonomy to me, just like having control of what I want to do, while having that purpose being fulfilled. I think that is my awesome life. And I think that's why I've really been trying to grow my personal brand, because obviously the more I can grow that, the more people I can help, and the more people help me with the business that I'm building. And when I can be in a position where I'm dedicating my time to that and impacting the most people, then I think I'll be happy. And just like lastly, the reason I really love this industry and I love the idea of personal branding and growing that is because it never ends. You can always grow, you can always impact more people. And so that's really exciting for me. Whereas like with the 9 to 5, with the job, like whether you believe there's more or not, it could take time. You're not in control of your own growth. Whereas with your personal brand and building influence in this way, you're completely in control. Like you can make more content, you can reach more people. If you want to spend money on ads for follows, whatever, like you can do whatever you want to do to truly grow. And so that's where I think that's where my awesome life is, just having time freedom, like money freedom, and while I have those things, be in a position to just impact a large amount of people and let that feed into the time and money freedom, right? It's like a big cycle. And yeah, I think that kind of like covers it right there. I know I said a lot, but that's kind of like the main thing.
That was good. That was a good answer for that. That was awesome. See, use that word a lot here. It's good.
Yeah,
But
there we go. Thanks, man.
now
Appreciate it.
this is going to be important. This is going to be very important. What is your go-to karaoke song?
We Belong Together, Mariah Carey.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
Man,
Wow.
I had the biggest crush on Mariah Carey when I was a little kid. Like the
Everybody did.
big dude, like the biggest ever. And I remember like the music video Obsessed came out. First I loved that We Belong Together, and then Obsessed came out, where she was like making a song about Eminem and like he got ran over by a bus or whatever at the end.
Yep.
Anyways, the music video was spectacular. I was probably too young to watch that when I first watched it, but I was in love with her. And so yeah, We Belong Together is just like my song, dude. Like always has been. I used to sing it in middle school out loud like all the time. It was just funny. And now it's still my go-to.
That's phenomenal. Unbelievable stuff. Man, this was great. This was great having you on. We have been talking. I lost track of time because this has been just such a good back and forth conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. But before you get out of here, you got to tell everybody where and how they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me at the Felipe Fontes, every platform. Made that uniform so easy. The Felipe Fontes, Felipe. A lot of people don't know how to spell that. Felipe Fontes. And yeah, you'll find me everywhere there. And yeah, bro, thank you so much for having me on. And you first invited me on this thing, and I was super excited. I mean, the podcast is doing awesome. I was like, wow, he must think I'm doing awesome. But it's really cool to be here and talk to you. And I know we think a lot alike in many different ways. As we even talk about, like with the morning routine, you pull out the $100 million offers. It's literally
Yeah.
right next to me. I even have the next book, $100 million leads, right next to it too. And but yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I have a feeling we're gonna make a lot of collaborative content, I should say, in the future, because we definitely vibe well. So
Definitely,
yeah,
man. Definitely, man. It was great having you here. And everybody who's listening right now, don't forget to go leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'm doing the new thing. I'm putting the full episodes on Twitter as well. So you'll get it everywhere. You will get it everywhere possible. Google Podcasts is shutting down, so don't look there. But please go leave us a review. And Felipe, my guy, thank you again. And everyone, we will see you next week.